The first thing that comes to mind when you think of a character that can't control their lustful desires is, well, basically any anime character in the mid-2010s. There's a lot of anime I watched back then full of depravity and sin. The stuff anime characters do would make Epstein blush. I find it hard to rewatch some moments, and I find myself quickly fast-forwarding or even skipping episodes altogether. It's hard to put into words, but I don't want to watch any of it. It makes me vastly uncomfortable, it's not morally light, and it's inappropriate. And it's just really cringe. I'll talk more about my feelings on lust in anime as a whole later, but first, what exactly is lust and how does it tie into anime? When you think of the word lust, the first thing that comes to mind is desires of the flesh. We're all human, right? And we all get a little bit horny sometimes. What's so wrong with that? We all have to reproduce eventually, and it's only natural that we get a little bit lustful. But characters who embody lust in its moral and spiritual use tend to indulge in sexual desire excessively, which can lead to other sinful acts such as adultery, rape, and bestiality. Additionally, it is often said that the impurity of lust turns you into a slave of the devil. This means that you disregard your own morality in exchange for lustful desire. You are so blinded by lust that you disregard every other emotion. Every other thought in your head fades away as you indulge excessively. A person can have a lust for power or for material things. People often attribute some parts of lust as greed or even gluttony because there are very blurred lines between all these sins, and it's often hard to pick which act fits into each sin. I'll expand on this as we go further into the video. All you need to know for now is that the most popular version of lust as a sin is in its most moral and spiritual sense. In Christianity, looking at another woman with lust in your eyes while you're married is considered adultery. Regardless of whether or not you commit the deed, just having lustful desires is a sin itself. If you act on those thoughts, it turns you into a slave of the devil, a slave of lust. First, let's narrow this down and focus on a trope in anime called the old pervert. This character is self-explanatory. It's an old man who is a pervert. The character is usually funny and lighthearted. Although it isn't much in use as it was back in the early 90s to late 2000s, there's still a couple characters to note. Master Roshi from Dragon Ball Z. I remember first watching Dragon Ball Z and seeing Roshi grab Bulma's ass. It was on a 55-inch TV, the volume was pretty high, and my entire family was sitting around the breakfast table. Needless to say, it wasn't a very good day. Roshi is known for his tendency to indulge in lecherous behavior. His lustful nature in Dragon Ball is a recurring theme. This man is a menace. Every possible lustful thing you can imagine he has probably done. This man is the ultimate gooner. Any female that has ever been in contact with this man regrets it. There are scenes in Dragon Ball, especially early Dragon Ball, where Roshi is essentially molesting people. No one does anything about it. No one seems to care other than the person being touched. Watching these scenes again as a grown man are some of the most uncomfortable moments in the entire series. I don't know why Roshi does this. He's a grown 300-year-old man, but he can't stop. He's a slave of lust. There is also another example of the trope, although done very differently. Jiraiya from Naruto. His lustful tendencies are portrayed more comically exaggerated and less serious than Master Roshi's, and they also serve as a storytelling point to highlight more serious matters. Sometimes Jiraiya exaggerates his perviness to distract the character when they're feeling down and need to be uplifted. I didn't catch him doing this on my first watch of Naruto, but when I was older and rewatched it, I noticed him doing it. I was very surprised. I can't think of any examples of Master Roshi doing this off the top of my head, but please correct me if I'm wrong. Jiraiya represents the trope of a pervy sage pretty well. Someone who reached the peak of mastery in the spiritual realm, but still has earthly vices like alcohol, women, and general perviness. Both Roshi and Jiraiya are kind of harmless, or maybe just Jiraiya compared to the rest of the monsters in the anime world. They're almost saints. Where the real monsters lie in wait is in the harem genre. Going to the character tropes of the harem genre requires some context. Harem anime is a genre that often involves a male protagonist surrounded by multiple female characters who are romantically interested in him. Harem anime is usually a blend of romance, comedy, slice of life, or sometimes fantasy and supernatural elements. The genre by itself doesn't necessarily mean characters embody the deadly sin of lust. There is such a thing as a wholesome comedy or slice of life harem anime. However, some harem anime characters go over the line. Pardon my language, but they're so blinded by titties and ass that it overwhelms all rational thought. They turn into slaves of lust. One of the first anime that I ever watched was Highschool DXD. I saw a clip on YouTube of a pretty cool fight with really good animation, and so I happily clicked on the show. I didn't expect it to be a complete tonal shift from that initial clip I saw. If you've ever watched this anime, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Issei is the protagonist of Highschool DXD. The first time we see a glimpse of his character is him unsuccessfully attempting to peek at girls. Issei is very unintelligent and stupid, but his greatest trait is his straightforwardness and his worst is his lustful nature. Issei openly admits to being obsessed with female parts and having his own harem. Issei is a very complex character, and even though he's a slave of lust, he's also courageous and very kind. So let's focus on the wider genre, characters who have no positive traits whatsoever, the absolute scums of the earth, isekai protagonists and their harems. The fantasy genre is such a wonderful thing. Creatures of magic, systems unlike any other, worlds unlike our own. And what do you do with all that latent potential? Well, you make an isekai power fantasy. Creatures of magic, we have cat girls. Systems of magic, we have overpowered protagonists without a need for a system. What about a different world? Well, what about an ambiguous medieval setting? In the mind of an isekai protagonist, the first thing upon being sent into another world is to buy a slave, add her to your harem, and repeat until the end of time. Another element is their lecherous nature. They love to ogle and admire, so to speak. I mean, normally big, beautiful, naked women don't fall out of the sky, but anything can happen in an isekai. And it's just wasted potential and a breeding ground for the sin of lust. Another type of lust is the lust for power and control. One example of this is Aizen. Aizen is a powerful and manipulative character in Bleach who seeks to achieve a godlike state and wants to overthrow the Soul King, or God. This goal requires an insane lust for power and control, and it leads him to commit several acts of betrayal against the Soul Society and masterfully manipulate others. He causes untold damage to the world of Bleach and is the main antagonist of the series because of his lust for power. Another example of this drive is Orochimaru from Naruto. Orochimaru's quest for power and knowledge and the pursuit of immortality and learning forbidden jutsu drives him to commit horrifying experiments, including human sacrifices and severe mutilation to his own body. Orochimaru is known for his single-minded obsession with Sasuke and acquiring for his own nefarious purposes. This lust for power ultimately leads to no consequences whatsoever, and it's all sunshine and smiles about it. The final character I'll be talking about is Hisoka, because Hisoka is a combination of both a lust for power and a more lecherous drive, just like Orochimaru's lust for Sasuke. Hisoka from Hunter x Hunter. Hisoka becomes aroused at the prospect of fighting strong individuals. He likes in particular to fight people who are just beginning to bloom in strength. This means children with high strength potential stimulate him with a sense of ecstasy and possible bloodlust. This is why he takes an interest in Gon and why he watches him all the time, waiting for him to reach his full potential. He holds back from fighting these children because he believes the best time to strike is once his prey is ripe, so to speak, and so he often takes out his sexual frustration on unsuspecting bystanders. This is why Hisoka was just killing people during the Hunter exam. Hisoka finds sexual gratification from killing and likens it to sex, without actually having sex at all. Now that we've seen all these aspects of the sin of lust, let's reach a proper conclusion. These characters showcase various forms of intense longing and desire, whether it be for power, control, or other indulgences. This shows us that lust, when taken to extremes, can lead to moral degradation and loss of apathy, and a descent into depravity. The fatal sin of lust is that it blinds you. It makes everything else fade away, and you become so obsessed with wanting to be in control, wanting to dominate and possess things that you cannot have, things that aren't yours, whether it be a man or a woman, or a lust for power. You lose control of yourself and become a slave of lust.
Bye bye, sayonara. 僕は田舎に引っ越したい。つまり